Hi guys, so my name is Kyrascosplay. I'm a cosplayer from Instagram. I have been cosplaying since 2012 now, a very long time, old and tired, and I've been a competitor in the cosplay contest and judging scene since 2018.
Hello everyone, I'm Colleen. I am a YouTuber and I've also been cosplaying for a long time, long enough to consider myself a con grandma at this point. Lots of cosplay, and I've also competed in a lot of competitions. So I'm going to be talking about cosplaying with mobility aids and disabilities during this panel, how I alter my costumes to work with mobility aids or any of the constraints with my disability. So a little bit about my disability so you might get an idea how I have to alter things. So here's me. I'm using different mobility aids in every picture, yes. That's because I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. Long word, but basically it means I can still stand if I really want to. I can use crutches. I've used a knee brace. It just depends on the situation. So I have cartilage damage in my joints. Cartilage protects your joints so you can run and jump and dance, and it absorbs all the impact, and it's great. My cartilage just doesn't do that, so it's actually quite painful for me to jump and run, and that's why I just don't do it anymore. So I have multiple different mobility aids you'll be seeing throughout this slide, so just keep in mind different aids, different situations, and I've had experience with a few different ones at this point.
So let's just get started with probably one of the biggest ones, keeping cool in cosplay. Listen, I don't know about you guys, but every summer I'm like, what if I pull out a whole parka and wear that to a con? So some things to keep in mind when you're making your cosplays and trying to keep yourself cool is to consider lightweight fabrics, things like anything that's sheer really, tulle, chiffon, whatever. The weave is a lot wider, so air will get through, it'll flow. You'll still also be shaded from the sun by said fabric without it clinging to you. Natural fibers tend to wick sweat and breathe better. Cotton breathes very well. Linen also breathes very well, but wicks sweat, whereas cotton will keep the sweat in. It will really absorb liquids. There are pros and cons to each one. Natural fabrics do tend to be a little bit more expensive, so you might have to budget for them, but also consider if you want to wear your cosplay in the summer or during the winter, just be prepared for when you might want to wear this costume. This one in particular was a mistake. I made the blue portions out of Japanese cotton, which is wonderful. That's the good part. The bad part was I lined the coat with a Sherpa fabric. It is so thick. It's like this thick, and I just wear a blanket and I perish. So just keeping fabrics in mind when you're constructing your costume, so you don't just, when you're in your wig and your makeup and the sweat just starts pouring from your hairline and it's nasty. So if you can't get around the fabric issue, there are some other options. You can use a hand fan. They're like those neck fans from Amazon. You can use a cooling vest like the fursuiters do. Usually what you do is you put the ice packs in the fridge, and then the next day you put it on and you put the little ice packs in, you put them right against your body. Those can create bulk. They can be more expensive, but they are a really good option if your costume is just not cutting it. You can also remove layers. The costume I'm wearing now has a trench coat and a blazer under it, and if I really want to, I can remove the blazer, for example, and that removes a layer of heat. You can also, if you sweat a ton, like me, you can also make, they're called dress shields, pit pads, underarm guards, and what these will do is they will catch the sweat in the armpit of your costume, and you can sew them in permanently, or you can remove them. You can buy them from the store, you can make them yourself, and you can just toss them in the wash. It's pretty great. They're washable. You can clean them or just straight up replace them. Other things, you can change the character's design, completely okay. Change material where possible. You can change the cut, so a character might have like a high collar jacket or shirt, change it into a V-neck, completely design a summer outfit, add vents, whatever you gotta do. Keeping cool is really important. I know Colleen tends to also screw up the season with her cosplays.
Yeah, I'm actually the opposite. Basically, we meet up at every con, and Kira's wearing like 3 layers, and I'm usually wearing a little crop top. So I do a lot of bodysuit cosplays, and the thing with my disability is my joints are really sensitive to cold. you know, some people have disabilities where they like can feel the rain coming like in their knees, and for me it's cold, and I actually, because I get so cold and it's cold out today, I snuck an entire quilt into Kumoricon this year. So I just bring blankets, whatever you need to keep warm, and I don't care if it's not canon. I don't care if Nana doesn't have a little blankie like she does now. So just do what you need to accommodate yourself, and just, it's so important to not be freezing or sweating so much. Yeah. And also consider, like, you know, if you have sensory friendly fabrics you need, that's fine too. Like, maybe this character looks like they're wearing a suede, but you don't like the texture, so you don't have to, okay? There is no like way you have to cosplay. You can use whatever fabrics are most comfortable, will keep you warm, will keep you cool, whatever you need. It doesn't need to be this imaginary character's imaginary type of fabric.
So kind of going off the last one where we talked about character design changes. So another thing you can do to have your cosplay work for you, not against you, is you can completely redesign your character. This is a redesign I've done for Serpentious from Husband Hotel, and I redesigned him because he is a snake. I am not a snake. I have legs, he does not, and all he wears is a jacket. So I have taken the character and I've reinterpreted it into what is going to work for me. And when it comes to character redesign, you know, you have to keep a couple things in mind. You're like, okay, what issue specifically am I tackling? And I'm tackling the leg issue. So I'm like, okay, I still kind of want to appear footless, so let's go with a floor-length skirt, a dress. You know, keep in mind, is the design going to be too boring? Is it going to be a little bit too much? Will it be too difficult to wear? And what new problems could arise from this design. So for example, now I have the opportunity to step on my dress and just face plant into the ground. So, you know, those are things to consider. If you're going to change it, what new issues could you run into? When you are redesigning a character, consider what makes them themselves, like what colors, what motifs, anything that makes them stand out. Is there a certain silhouette, like let's say Loki, for example, from the MCU? You know, it's usually green, black, and gold. Those are things you would want to keep in your character design when you redesign him. And then what specific look do I want to go for? Is this a historical look? Is this a crossover? Am I doing more of like a Ren Fair look? It's good to keep in mind what direction you're going to go.
Hey, and this is one of my original redesigns. So I did this Carmen Sandiego redesign, and it was for the Her Universe Fashion Show 2021. It's a big fashion show at San Diego Comic-Con. And for me, when I'm redesigning the character, like, yes, you want to make sure it's recognizable as the character. With Carmen, I mean, the hat is iconic, right? Like, you have to have the hat. But when I was looking at the coat, I wanted to make it a bit more accessible. Now with coats like this, the movement of moving my arms behind me to get onto the sleeve can be really stressful on my shoulder joints. It could be very painful. So I was thinking, how could I have her iconic coat, but not have to do the motion where I'm doing this to get it on and off, especially because it's pleather, and like if I'm going to be sweating buckets, I want to be able to like escape from this as fast as possible. So I ended up making a coat with a side opening. You can kind of see the buttons here, the little gold buttons on the side. Zipper in the front is a lie. So I actually can get in and out of this coat just sitting in my wheelchair. I don't even have to stand up. I just shed it off the side. And that was how I made it more accessible to me. Also, got to keep it fitted around the legs. You know, this costume has a skirt, but I just tuck it under. But things like big ball gowns, they can be done. You have to do them in a certain way. It's more difficult. So I decided I didn't want to fight the coat and the wheels thing. So I just made my coat very fitted around the legs. And I also want to make sure that, you know, my hands aren't going to get stuck. That little buckle did sometimes get in the way of the chair. So if I made it again, I definitely make that sleeve shorter. The other thing I wanted to talk about is cosplay contests. So in this panel, we're going to be kind of saying accuracy is trash. You know, if you want to be comfortable, make costumes that make you happy. Accuracy is trash. And every time I kind of said like, okay, I'm gonna adjust the accuracy of this costume for my disability. I've always gotten comments from people saying like, I'm disabled and I'd really love to do this, but like, I'm gonna get knocked off points in contests. And that is a lie. I don't know where this story came from. It's a blatant lie. If you are adjusting a costume for your disability, you will not get knocked off points. So I wanted to include some of the judges' comments from the Her Universe fashion show, because all of my positive comments actually were praising the alterations to the design with accessibility in mind. So this top one says, not only in a garment that is shown standing, but also in a garment that is shown sitting. A lot of designers don't really think about what their garment is going to look like when somebody's actually in a seated position. And that was from Ed LeBay, who's the Hot Topic SVP of Merchandise and Marketing. So if you tell a judge, hey, I went through the entire process of figuring out how this would look like sitting down, making sure it works with this costume, making sure my belt's not in the way of my little seat belt, you know, making sure that this can get tucked in, making sure the cape doesn't get eaten by the chair, all that stuff. If you tell a judge, that's like a whole extra step you went, right? You did extra work, you did extra planning, extra thinking. They're gonna love that. And then the other comment I got from the judges was, I loved the discreet buttons, the front zipper, how she says it doesn't open, it actually opens to the side to help get in and out of. And that was from Sarah Hambley, the 2019 Her Universe audience winner. So like they love this stuff, guys. Like if you tell a judge, I changed all of the closures so that they can work with my hands and I can get dressed by myself, they're gonna love that, because it's an extra step that other people might not go through. And that's probably where you're actually going to get the most praise. At least in my experience, the judges have actually been most impressed. So if you change your costume for comfort, accessibility, tell the judges, tell them, no one's gonna knock you off points for it.
I have personally never knocked anyone for making changes to a costume. Like, I've never knocked them for accuracy, as long as you can just explain the choices you have made and they make sense with the character. So for Obro, who was a couple slides back, he technically wears what is a karate gi, and I just looked at that and went, that's gonna look really ugly on me. So I actually, instead, I made Hakama pants instead. So I have the top tucked in, and I have the Hakama pants, and it's just, you know, it's a slight little style change, but I'm like, hey, I took a slightly more historical twist on it, and the judges looked at it and went, okay, it looks good. So you do not necessarily have to change your cosplay because you have a disability. It does not have to be major. You can just make whatever little tweaks you need to make it work for you. So if you do not want to do major design changes, you can also gender bend a character, which is something you can do in a much simpler way. Like, really all I've done to change this character is I just made the hair longer and I did not bind. So why would you gender bend? A big one is comfort, whether that's a body dysphoria thing or just generally like not feeling the binder today. Listen, I'm not feeling the binder today, so I'm just in a bra. But you know what? No one can see it, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to necessarily go out and buy one of those really expensive silicone chests if you don't want to. Creative freedom is another big one too. If you're like, hey, I like this character, but the outfit's not quite vibing with me, this is a really great place to make some changes and to customize it for you. And my favorite reason is just because you can. Like, there's absolutely no reason that you cannot gender bend a character. I know there was kind of some stigma around it a couple of years ago. Like, that's trash, okay? Just ignore that. We don't like that.
Oh, there's me again. Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about, this is just kind of fun. People enjoy these. Mobility aid decorations. So sometimes, you know, I alter the costume to fit my disability, but sometimes I like to make the mobility aids part of the costume too. And this is because when I was first starting out, when I was just a baby cosplayer, I was actually really scared to use my mobility aids at a con. I was working through some things and I thought people would judge me if I had my aids, so I was really scared to use them, and it led to me being in pain at con because I wasn't using the proper mobility aids, right? And I was trying to think of what I could do so it'd be less scary, so I'd be more comfortable, and that was decorating my mobility aids, because then, you know, when people sometimes stare, or I'm like, oh, they all think I'm weird, they all are judging me, they don't think I'm accurate. When I started putting on the decorations, it's like, they're probably checking out my cool Captain America wheels, like that must be it. And it just gave me so much confidence, And I noticed I got so many compliments and it really boosted that. People didn't care why I was in a wheelchair. They were just like, man, I love those Pokeball wheels. So that was something that really helped me gain confidence. I don't have one on today, but at least in those baby steps, it was like a huge thing for me just to make it part of the costume so that I felt like this is part of my costume. It needs to be with me. I can't leave it at home and have my knees swell up like balloons. I'm gonna take my wheelchair because it looks awesome, okay guys? So here's a few examples of, I did forearm crutches covers for a while and I made a tutorial on those on my wheelchair. I did the wheelchair covers, I have tutorials on those. So it's just a few examples and like, dude, my confidence like skyrocketed.
We talked a little bit about fabric before, but we're going to briefly touch on it again. So when you're making a costume, things to consider are like the nature of the fabric. Is this something that I have to steam, like linen, super wrinkle prone? Satin, some satins, if they get wet, they might stain. So those are some things to consider when it comes to like creating a cosplay that's going to work for you. I personally do not go anywhere near satin because I'm lazy and I'm gonna get water all over it and sweat stains. It's gonna be nasty. Like, kudos to people who use satin or silks or whatever. That's not me. This is a poly rayon dress that I never had to iron ever, okay? Because I'm that person. So, other things to consider is like, can it be submerged in water? Does it hold in odor? I have had some cosplays that just stink to high hell that just really need help because of the fabric I used. Furniture velvet. Yeah. So definitely consider, what is your costume for? You know, is this for an underwater shoot? Is this for summer? How's the fabric going to behave? What do I want it to do? And how much care do I have to put into it? All right, so next section is the fun stuff, long hair and long hems and long capes. And I'm just gonna say this outright, if it's too cumbersome, don't do it, shorten it. As far as hair goes, you can always shorten the style a little bit if you're a really gifted stylist. Like how Peach has her hair down, you can do like the cotton batting thing where you just like style it and it doesn't move even though your hair is technically down. You can also use a hairnet. I think Rapunzel cosplayers do that. I think some Jinx cosplayers do that. They've got their hair braided up and just put a hairnet over it because they're like, yeah, one and done. And you know what? Kudos. I hate restyling wigs. And honestly, too, if your character has long hair, really, no one's going to notice if you make it a couple inches shorter. No one is paying that much attention to your costume. Hems, you can also shorten those. You can either shorten it like by actually like bringing the hem up a little bit, or you can wear some shoes that will additionally raise the hem off of the floor.
So these are some videos if you want to play and they don't have sound. So I felt like a video is the best way to show what it looks like when a wheelchair actually starts eating a costume, like actually devouring it. So the big problem with long hems, kind of like I was talking about with ball gowns, is they'll get caught under the front caster wheels. And it actually, yes, it will tear apart your costumes, get them dirty. This wheelchair has destroyed things. So there are ways to do it. You can try and like, you know, make it slimmer, or you can tuck it under. Personally, I don't have the energy for that, guys. Like, I'm just going to shorten it, take off layers. I'm gonna make just smaller dresses because I don't want to be constantly tucking it under my legs or trying to like tie it back underneath my legs. So I just don't do big skirts anymore. Same with capes. So this is the first test run of my Nana cosplay. I purchased a lot of the pieces of this costume, including the cape. So this cape was not made with a wheelchair user in mind, and my wheelchair just took a little munch out of it. Obviously, this is a bit of a safety hazard too. I live in so much fear that my cape will catch onto something and I will be strangled to death. So what I did is I redid the entire hem. I cut it up. It's a much smaller cape now, and for all my capes, I also have them connect at the shoulders instead of around the neck, because I don't ever want them catching in the wheels in whatever way and pulling me back. If this catches in anything, it will, hopefully, if I designed it right, pop off, and it will come off. So that's what you want to focus on. I'd also think about things like elevators, escalators. Is there any sort of machinery that can catch on to these things? And like I said, if you are in love with the big skirt, more power to you. Try and, you know, figure out ways to tuck it under and make it work. But if you are old and tired like me, you can also just make it smaller, and no one's going to care about the change in accuracy, especially because as I'm sitting, the cape doesn't look too small when I'm sitting, honestly. So it's a good compromise. Here's another example of capes. So here's my old Supergirl cape, actually. I'm really proud of it. It was, I think, 7 whole yards of fabric. I don't know, I was going through a phase. And you'll see that this cape collapses around the neck, and I was using crutches at the time. So I was still kind of able to get around con with my crutches, but this did actually catch indoors. So I would go through a door, and because there's 7 whole yards of it, I'd shut the door behind me, and the last 2 yards are still coming, and it would get caught in the door. And I had a few close encounters, and as I started, you know, using the crutches and then the wheelchair, I was like, we can't do this anymore, guys. Like, we're gonna have a serious problem. So I actually remade this costume entirely, and that's the one you're seeing in the center. And this cape is much smaller. I even measured it out so that the width was about to hang in the back between my wheels. And you can also see with that one, I did even better. I made a harness. I love that harness. So it hooks underneath, and then when it pulls on the chest, hopefully snaps off. Long hair. So here's a costume I did recently. This is Queen Serenity. Look at look how long her hair is in the reference. It's longer than she is. I wasn't gonna do that. As much as the cape and the skirt things scare me, I don't think anything really sounds much worse than getting your hair caught in your wheelchair as you are rolling through con. So I got this wig commissioned, and I actually worked with the commissioner, and we agreed to make a really short wig. And I've also had a lot of good luck with commissioners. I found if you know what adaptations you need to your costume and communicate them to your commissioner, then they will do that. And with this wig, the commissioner also originally wanted to put magnets in the hair buns so I could pop them off. And I was like, I don't really feel good about that because I'm afraid they will catch in the push handles. Sometimes I slouch. So I'm afraid my hair bun is going to come off on the push handles and leave the wig behind and just hang off my chair. So that was the solution I had for Queen Serenity. Yes, the wig is so much shorter, but I got to actually enjoy the costume and have fun. Okay, we already kind of talked about long hem, so here's just some examples of dresses where it was taken in. You can see how much more form-fitting my Carmen and my She-Ra are, and how there's no way those are going to get caught under the wheels, whereas this one, you can see it's already in the danger zone.
So, if you're not like Colleen, and you're not sitting all the time, you have to sit down sometimes, here are some things to consider. Anticipate that you're going to sit, because cons are tiring. Come on, no one's on their feet that long. Can you sit on the back of your cosplay without breaking it? I know that's something that armor people consider all the time, if they've got the foam pieces in the back, on their legs, whatever. If you are making a historical piece, here was a pillow bustle I made versus the lobster tail. The lobster tail is completely collapsible. It accordions up against my back, and I can lean all the way back, versus the pillow bustle does not move at all. That is stuffed with stuffing. It's not going to move. So one thing I have to take into consideration if or when I use that is how far can I lean back in a chair and how well am I going to be able to relax. Another big one is, can you even fit in the chair in the first place? How wide is your costume? I have a pair of wings that are hiding back there. They're 7 feet wide when they're open. That cannot fit in a chair. So that's something that I can go into the con and I can at least know that, and I can prepare for that. Can you remove pieces to facilitate you sitting? What can be modified during the building stage? I am all for changing the structure of things to, do what I want them to do so I can sit, because I like to sit.
So for me with sitting in cosplay, I always like to, first of all, I like to use stretch fabrics because they're more comfortable, they stretch more. And also when you are sitting all day, you'll want to potentially think about adding a bit more space down here in the pants. There's something called wheelchair pants. They're a real thing. They're made just for wheelchair users, and they're designed with that extra space so you don't have that bunching, or you know when you sit in jeans for too long and it like pushes back on your hips and it starts to like leave an imprint. So to avoid that, I use stretchy stuff. This bodysuit, as well as like my pants on that last picture, when I stand up, they look super baggy. They don't even look good standing up, in my opinion, but because they have that extra give to them, that extra space, they're so much more comfortable sitting down. I could sit in those pants all day, no problems, and at this point, I'm probably gonna be sitting. Like, there's no way I can go through a con with crutches anymore, so I'd rather design everything as if I'm going to be using my wheelchair the entire time I'm wearing it and put in extra space. And the bonus is I don't ever have to worry about my pants falling down, so I can make them big and they're not gonna fall off. The other thing is, like Kira was talking about with like detachable pieces, kind of taking pieces like the big butt bows on the Sailor Moons and putting them on the back of your chair. I just make a little harness on the back and attach anything like that. If there's any part of the costume that would be in this part, I try and just attach it to the back of my chair so it's not lost and it's more comfortable.
Hidden closures and combining pieces. I'm personally a really big fan of this one. So, hidden closures. Have you guys ever run into a character like the Scarlet Witch where she's just not drawn with any closures? She's just in there? You should add them, okay? Like, let me just say, you should add them. Or like a spider suit, same problem. It'll help you get dressed faster. It'll help you get dressed easier. Like, you know, I'm a big fan of being able to put on my costume in about 10 minutes, and I like to do it without help. So anywhere I have to put a hidden closure, I will, whether it's Velcro, zipper, hooks and eyes, whatever. You can avoid straining yourself. So like when I do like an overhead movement, I find that I mess up my shoulders a lot, so I will put closures on the side here, so I don't have to do so much of the overhead movement, and I can just kind of slip the shirt on instead. Also then if you're traveling alone, you don't have to rely on someone else. I went to a con on the East Coast earlier this year and it was nice. I didn't have to I brought a costume where I could get dressed by myself and I didn't have to worry that I was rooming alone. As far as merging pieces, I did that with this costume. There's a white undershirt and there's a black crop top. Those are the same piece. They will remove bulk. They can also then remove heat. So like if you're wearing this in the summer and the whole thing is pleather and you're dying, at least you're not at least you don't have an additional layer there. You can also cut down on craft time and resources. So if you're using a really fancy material like silk and you're like, oh, I just have it for like this little cutout here, instead of making the full shirt, you just need to buy enough fabric to make like the little cutout in the top. So here is an example of a costume I did that has some hidden closures in it. I have the wrist zippers like the Spidey suits have, and there is a zipper that goes all the way down the side seam because this is non-stretch material and she has nothing visible. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to put like this big ugly zipper right down the center front. What can I do? She also has gloves that are attached straight into the sleeves. So to accommodate that, you know, that's where I put the wrist zipper in. And it was really easy to get into, and it was really easy for me to take care of myself.
So for mobility aid, closures, and fasteners, one of the big problems I have is mobility in my hands. I have trouble with my hands too, and I want to make sure I have huge zippers or huge clasps. I can't really do the little invisible ones anymore. Like I can't grasp them, as well as buttons can be a problem. Yeah, this thing! I love this thing. So this is an adaptive tool. You can just go on Amazon and look up like button tools for arthritis, or they seem to always market towards arthritis. I don't know why that is the one that everyone is making tools for, but it is. So just button tool for arthritis, zipper tool for arthritis, or just adaptive tools. And you'll find this guy. I love this guy because it's how I'm able to get in and out of costume by myself. It also hooks onto zippers, and that's why the zippers I use, they have to be the big ones. I have a huge zipper I put into this one. So I did originally buy this costume, but the bodysuit that came with it had one of those little invisible zippers, and it wasn't big enough to hook onto, so I just made a whole new bodysuit from scratch. I made it bigger so I could sit in it, I made it comfortable fabric, and I put in this huge zipper. And it's in the back. You really don't see it with the wig and the cape, especially because I have the back of the chair hiding it, but that has been a huge lifesaver. I can actually get in and out of this and like go to the bathroom if I want without having to have my husband like follow me and help me do it myself. So adaptive tools are a lifesaver.
So back to merging pieces. This was a costume I did a couple of years ago, and most of these pieces are combined. So I'm a big fan of merging pieces. I'm a big fan of a lot of things in this panel if you haven't noticed. So for example, everything on this shoe is one piece. All of these skirt panels, there are 7 of them, they're all tied to a single sash. So I can just take this sash, pick it up, tie it, done. These bracers and the wrist protectors, that's all one piece. Yeah, it makes getting dressed really, really easy. I know some people are sticklers for accuracy and they're like, well, I want to tie all these things on individually. Listen, I don't have time for that. Okay, no. So these are all connected to the shoes. Especially if you have a lot of little pieces, it's really easy for them to get lost, or they'll fall off during the day. Even some of these knots have come undone before, but they can't go anywhere because I have sewn them in the front onto the shoe. And then as far as the skirt panels go, what's nice about all those being connected is, first off, you know, I put it on in one motion, it's done. But the skirt panels are also permanently in a position that I like them in. So that is a big advantage to merging pieces, and again, kind of like I said before, reducing bulk, reducing fabric, material costs in general. And this one also has a hidden closure in it. So this costume, so this right here, this is a non-stretch shirt that you can see is pretty form-fit to her. I wasn't gonna make this whole thing, so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna make that a t-shirt. Well, how do I put that on? So what I did is, excuse me, Colleen, right under here, there's a strip of Velcro, so I can pull the front panel open, and my shirt just opens right in the middle, and you never see it. I just put the shirt on like a vest, and I close the Velcro, and that's how I get in, and I used a non-stretch fabric, and I was able to still keep it form-fitting. Oh my God, I love talking about footwear because I feel like I've made a lot of really stupid footwear decisions over time. Please be nice to your feet. Please, I've made the mistake of like buying shoes that are too big or too small because I look at them and I'm like, oh, well, like, that's a really good style, that's pretty close. Yeah, like the early con days. I'm like, yeah, it's good enough. And then you take them to con and they totally chew apart your feet. I have a rule now where if I ever wear a pair of shoes to con and they hurt my feet, I throw them out the second I take them off because it's just so not worth it to get blisters and any other horrible thing that could happen to your feet over the course of the day. If you are really set on, you know, the 6-inch stilettos, consider bringing an alternate pair of shoes and saving those for like a photo shoot, or if you're on stage and you want something really flashy. Please buy them in the correct size. I can't believe I have to say this, but I'm the idiot who needed to hear it, okay? So I'm sure there's someone else out there who's buying shoes that are a size too big because they look good. Also use shoe inserts as needed. They add an extra layer of cushion. I personally have high arches and they will get tired over the course of the day, so this really helps keep my arches from straining. You can also completely alter the shoe. So these are some shoes I did for Present Mike. You can see his dumb, ugly rain boots that I hate a lot. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go a very punk rock version with this character. So I just completely redesigned him. I chose something that was gonna breathe better than your traditional rain shoe. The sole is nice and thick. It has some good insoles in the middle and it's super comfortable. And I'm like, you know what? It gets the idea across. Honest to God, no one knows what your shoes look like. Just pick comfortable shoes. One thing to be wary of when you are buying shoes is I like to opt for shoes that have kind of like a thicker outer sole and inner sole, because then that generally means your shoe has more layers. I have had issues in the past wearing shoes that have like a really thin sole, such as like some sports shoes, like wrestling shoes, that just have a really thin outsole, and what that does is it increases the intensity of your foot on the floor, and it's a higher impact and your feet are going to tire a lot faster. So please also consider going for a shoe that has more going on with the sole. Going through doors. This one's been a struggle today. So some things to consider is like, how big is your cosplay and does it collapse? How much space do you need? Do you need a handler? I am a big fan. I'm saying that a lot. If your prop is oversized, I cannot recommend enough, like making it as small as possible, but it still looks big. So here's an example. These are actually, I have them with me. Let me just grab them. They're hiding. So these are the wings in question. They are 7 feet wide when they're open, but they still look pretty large. So you can see in the picture here, Castiel's wings are significantly bigger, but I'm like, no, I need to go through doors and exist with other people. So one thing to consider is what I did for these is I drew up a blueprint. I made a very large piece of paper and I took my pen and I just went to town drawing them and I said, okay, what can I get away with in a sense? And this was the smallest I could make them without them looking a little proportionally too small. So I can only recommend doing blueprints, figure out how to scale it to you and just enough to get the idea across. Here's another example. These are bull horns for Tavros from Homestuck, and you can see his horns go out quite a bit, whereas in this photo, the horns were only made to go as far out as the shoulders, and what that does is that prevents, you know, spinning around and taking someone's eye out. And also because they're smaller, they are lighter, and they're easier to pack, and you just, you know, not smacking your friends in the face is pretty awesome.
Okay, so for me, wings were a bit more of a challenge. There had to be some engineering that went into it. I did wings back when I used crutches. I also had a pair of angel wings, not quite as large, but still a very big pair of angel wings, and I got rid of them. I sold them. I was like, the ship has sailed. I'll never be able to do wings with a wheelchair. It's not possible. And then this year I rediscovered this show called Wigs Club where they're all beautiful fairies, and I was like, no, Colleen, we're gonna get back into it and we're gonna make wings work with wheelchairs. And I did. It just took a bit more effort. So here's my smaller Techno wings. And so I attach them to the back of the chair with a harness. You can kind of see here where they have little connections and they connect to a harness that goes over the chair. And they have to be at a very specific angle. If they're too far forward, I keep smashing them with my elbow so they can't be further than where my elbow is. But if they're all the way back, then no one can push my wheelchair for me. At cons, sometimes I get tired and I ask someone to help push me. So I also wanted that to be an option. Another thing to consider is when you see people walking with those big wings, when they go through a door, what do? They turn sideways, right? Like I can't do that. I can't just like hop through the door sideways. So I also need to make sure that the wings like are not wider than a door, or if they are, that they can fold back. My Queen Serenity wings from a few slides back, those were just wire and they just folded. They just folded back if I needed to. Another thing I consider is anything you have to hold in your hands. It's really hard when you're a wheelchair user because my hands are kind of busy walking for me. So it's hard for me to hold stuff. So again, I utilized the wheelchair harness and I made little side holsters for my Kishu cosplay. When I cosplayed Adora, I attached the sword to the back. There are so many ways you can just attach stuff to the back of your chair if you are creative enough. And make sure you always give them cause tests though, so that you're not like stuck at a con and you have things breaking back there. Definitely make sure you try them out first, but it can be done, just takes a bit more effort.
I'm gonna kind of rip here off of what Colleen is saying about like being able to put your hand props away. So also considering, you know, like, can I put my hand props away and or how can I access a bag? So I cosplay President Mike, like his hero outfit, and he has headphones and he has a neck piece and he has a leather jacket and huge shoulder pads, and by the time I put that costume on, I'm like not able to move. I can't move my chin down, I can't hear anyone, I can't really bend my arms, and there's no place for me to carry a backpack or anything with shoulder straps. So Different bags are something that's really important to consider, and what I ended up settling on for present Mike is I actually have a thigh bag for him, and it's black, it blends right in with his pants, and you can buckle it across your belt, and then the other side goes on your leg, and it's great because I can fit some little things like a wallet and my phone and just the necessities. So yeah, being able to get things out of your hands is awesome. No one likes going into the dealer's hall and you like can't put your things down.
Yeah, also, this is also a good time for an eat-a-bag moment, and I just hide it with my
We
cake.
love a good eat-a-bag. All right, bathroom breaks. I know a couple people who don't like to use the bathroom. Hi, this is for you. I don't know why this is so controversial, but please make sure you can go to the bathroom in your cosplay. Make sure you can take them. Please plan on taking them, otherwise you're not hydrating enough and you might end up having problems at con. Don't get trapped in your cosplay. Pre-plan how you're gonna put it on. Do you need help? This costume, it's very easy for me to get out of and go to the bathroom. I just know that I'm gonna need someone to hold my stuff because I have to take off quite a few things. I have to take off the skirt, I have to take off the quiver, I have to take off the bracers, but at least I know that and I can grab a friend and say, hey, can you sit here for 5 minutes with my things? If you really can't get out of a costume by yourself, make sure you have a handler. And don't not take them just because you don't want to. I'm looking at you. Please be sure to hydrate at the event, which does lead to bathroom breaks. Please go to the bathroom, you guys. Come on, someone's gonna get like a UTI and it's not gonna be fun. So, things to consider about the bathroom break. How big is your costume? Can you fit into a regular stall, or you're gonna have to like use the wheelchair stall? Are you able to take it off easily? Can you put it back on? Do you need help? Is there anything you can change to avoid needing a handler? For example, if I leave these wigs in my hotel room tomorrow, I do not need a handler. Can you get your hands free of gloves, claws, sleeves? I know a big thing, once again, is like the bodysuits. If they don't have like little wrist zippers, that's a big problem. And if your costume is historical, consider historical underwear, because the last thing you need is to be in a ball gown and you're wearing modern underwear and you're not able to like grab it. This can include things like split crotch drawers, and this can apply to ball gowns too. You might consider making yourself a pair of split crotch drawers for your ball gown. And then I have a little bit more here on historical or historically inspired costumes. I'm working on one right now. It's very fun, but I'm also not a diehard for historical accuracy. I very much believe in historical adequacy. So when you are working on your costume, decide how far you're gonna go. Like, you know, if you really want to hand stitch the entire thing because that's historically accurate, that's fine, but I'm a cosplayer. I've got like 10 more costumes to make this year. I don't have time to be hand stitching 3 petticoats. So I'm very much a believer that you need to figure out what you're going to modernize and what you're going to keep historically accurate. So some things that you might keep historical would be the silhouette. That's going to be very important. You might consider historical fabrics. Because you're wearing so many layers, you're probably going to want some natural fibers on the bottom that are going to wick sweat. You might choose to use sturdier threads, such as like the thicker silk thread, but you know, that's expensive, so maybe you don't want to, and that's okay. For your corset, you might consider synthetic whalebone, which when heated will form to your body instead of steel, which can be a little stiffer and won't hold its shape. Some modern things you can do is you can combine layers, like multiple petticoats put into one waistband. You can raise the hem so that you can walk and not get eaten in the escalator, because that sucks. Definitely use modern tools. Please, beyond just like a sewing machine, like use a heat gun where you need it, use glue where you need it, and modern closures, you know, it's like zippers, snaps, Velcro. You don't just have to like tie and button everything just because that's what they did. So, we're actually done a little bit early, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I'll just let you guys go.